The first time he touched my hand, I forgot how to breathe. The second time, I realized I didn't want him to let go. His name was Owen. And yes, I know how ridiculous it sounds that we shared the same name. My brother used to joke that God ran out of creativity the night we were named. But if anything, maybe that was the universe's way of telling me that our lives were meant to overlap. I met him 3 months before my brother's wedding. The afternoon I came home to our sleepy cul-de-sac with a cracked heart and the sudden realization that nothing in my life was going the way I expected. I was 26, but the last 4 years had been a string of silent endings. Dreams, relationships, the future I'd once imagined. All quietly fell apart like torn pages drifting from a book. He moved in next door with nothing but a truck full of plants and the kind of smile that made strangers feel like old friends. He waved at me through the fence like we had known each other for years, even though I couldn't remember the last time I had seen anyone wave at a stranger without a reason. He said, "You look like you could use help." I answered, "You look like someone who gives it even when people don't ask." He laughed. I didn't. But that didn't stop him from showing up every day. Soon, he knew what time I left for work, when I came home, which song I listened to when I needed comfort, and the way my voice sounded when I pretended I was fine. At first, I thought he was just a nosy neighbor, the kind who thought friendliness was a requirement, not a choice. But slowly, I found myself waiting for his knock, his voice, his jokes that made no sense but somehow made me smile anyway. He was the kind of person I could talk to without needing to explain my sadness from the start. He didn't ask what broke me. He just sat beside me on the back porch, sipping iced tea and humming songs he didn't know the lyrics to. He didn't pry. He didn't push. He just stayed. And sometimes that was enough. When my brother announced his engagement, the whole family celebrated like Christmas arrived early. I tried to make myself feel joy, but it felt like my emotions were trapped behind glass. I wanted to be happy. I did, but I felt like a guest inside my own life. One night, I found myself confiding in Owen as the sun dipped behind the rooftops. I said, "I feel like I'm stuck, like everyone's moving forward without me." He didn't respond immediately. He just looked at me with those bright blue eyes that always seemed to hold more light than the world around us. Then he said, "Maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you just haven't found something worth moving toward." I didn't know then just how right he was. A week before the wedding, my brother begged me to bring a date. He insisted I couldn't show up alone. "Everyone's going to be coupled up," he said. "You'll look like you're still living in your sad era." But I didn't have anyone to bring, and honestly, I had no desire to explain myself to a room full of relatives who would pretend to care. When Owen overheard me complaining, he offered without hesitation. "I'll go with you." I stared at him. "You mean as a fake date?" He smirked. "A supportive date. Unless you want fake, I can act." I laughed for the first time that day. I said, "You don't have to." He said, "I want to." And something in the way he said it made my chest tighten. The wedding was held at an old estate outside the city, the kind of place that seemed to be built specifically for love stories. White chairs, fresh roses, fairy lights strung like glowing constellations. Everyone looked like they belonged, except me. I tried to disappear behind the champagne flute in my hand, but Owen wasn't having it. He stayed close, warm and confident, greeting people like he'd known them forever. Some assumed we were together. Neither of us corrected them. During the ceremony, the groom and groom stood facing each other, their vows trembling with sincerity, their voices cracked with feelings too big to hold steady. Love pulsed through the air in a way I could feel in my bones. And somewhere between their promises and the applause that followed, my throat tightened. I had always known my brother was brave, but watching him stand there, speaking his truth so proudly, so openly, made something inside me unravel. I had never dared to be that honest. Not with anyone, not even myself. Then, as tears pooled in my eyes, Owen reached for my hand. It was light at first, hesitant, testing. But when I didn't pull away, his fingers threaded between mine, grounding me in a way I didn't know I needed. My heart slammed against my ribs. The applause was loud, but his touch was louder. He leaned in, voice soft, almost drowned by the clapping. It's okay. You're allowed to feel it. And for the first time in a long while, I did. We stayed like that through the exit walk, through the cheers and confetti, through the celebration that seemed to exist in a world where everything was easy and beautiful. I held his hand like it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. At the reception, we sat shoulder to shoulder beneath strings of glowing bulbs. My relatives talked to him more than me. They liked him instantly. Of course they did. He was impossible not to like. Charming without trying, the kind of person who made everyone feel like they mattered. At one point, he excused himself to grab us drinks. I watched him move through the crowd like he belonged in every space he entered. But when his eyes found mine across the room, he smiled like I was the only person he saw. I didn't know what that meant. Or maybe I did, and I just wasn't ready to name it. When he returned, he placed a glass in front of me. Still feeling stuck, I shook my head. No, just scared. Of what? Of wanting things I can't have. He was quiet, studying me with a seriousness I wasn't used to. What if you can have them? What if you just need to want them out loud? I didn't know how to answer, not then. The night grew deeper. The speeches turned emotional. The scent of lilac and champagne drifted through the air. When my brother and his husband took the floor for their first dance, everyone gathered around them, watching the way they swayed and laughed like nothing in the world existed beyond each other. And something inside me cracked wide open. I felt Owen shift beside me. He leaned close, his breath brushing my ear. You okay? No. Yes. I don't know. His hand found mine again under the table. Warm. Steady. Everything was too much and not enough all at once. Later, when the music spilled outside and fairy lights glowed beneath the dark sky, we slipped away from the noise. We stood beneath a row of lanterns that lined the garden path. The world felt quieter there, softer. He said, "You look like you're thinking so loudly I can hear it." I said, "I am." About what? About you. About me. About everything I never let myself say. His eyes held mine, bright and patient. Then say it. I swallowed. But before I could speak, someone called my name from the reception. I jumped, startled, and the moment dissolved like mist. I walked back inside. He didn't follow right away. And I was relieved. And disappointed. And terrified. Hours blurred together until the music faded and guests began to leave. My brother found me, cheeks flushed, eyes shining. He hugged me tight. "Thank you for being here. It means everything." I didn't tell him it was the only place I wanted to be. When I finally stepped outside, I found Owen leaning against his car, hands in his pockets, waiting. The night air felt cool, and the world quieted around us. Ready to go? Yeah. You okay? I nodded. You sure? No. He opened the passenger door for me, and we drove in silence. Not uncomfortable, just full. When we parked in front of our houses, he didn't rush to leave. He just sat there, watching me like he was waiting for permission to speak. "You looked beautiful tonight," he said. My breath hitched. "I'm not beautiful." He laughed once, soft. "You have no idea." I turned toward him. "Why did you hold my hand?" He paused long enough for my heartbeat to stutter. "Because I wanted to." I stared at him, his face was earnest, open, and suddenly, the things I'd never let myself feel became impossible to ignore. I whispered, "But we're just neighbors." He shook his head slowly. "No, not just." The car felt too small. The night too quiet. My heart too loud. Couldn't breathe. I opened the door and stepped out. He didn't try to stop me. I walked to my front porch, hands shaking, emotions crashing over me. I heard his car door open, then close. Footsteps. I didn't look back until I reached my door. He stood at the edge of my walkway, unsure. I said good night. He nodded. Good night, Owen. I stepped inside and closed the door, leaning against it. My chest ached. Something was happening. Something I didn't have a name for. I thought I could sleep. I was wrong. At 2 a.m., I found myself on the porch again, staring at his house, lights still on. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Before I could talk myself out of it, I texted him. You awake? The door opened almost instantly. He stepped out barefoot, wearing an oversized hoodie. Couldn't sleep. Same, he said. For a moment, we just stood there, the distance between our porches suddenly heavier than all the miles we'd ever walked. Can I come over? He didn't hesitate. Always. I crossed the lawn, heart pounding. When I reached him, he looked at me like he was afraid I'd disappear if he blinked. Inside, his house smelled like cedar and lemon. Quiet, warm, safe. He said, want tea? I shook my head. I want to know why you offered to come with me today. Why you stayed so close. Why it felt like more than it should have. He studied me, expression soft but unwavering. Because it is more. He took a breath. At least to me. My heart stuttered. I whispered, I don't know how to do this. He stepped closer, slow, careful, like he was approaching a wild thing. You don't have to know. Just feel. He reached for my hand again, but this time, I met him halfway. Just feel. And God help me, I did. I felt everything. I didn't know where this would lead. I only knew that for the first time in years, I didn't feel stuck. I felt found. And Owen's hand, warm in mine, felt like the beginning of something real. Something terrifying. Something beautiful. Something I wasn't ready to lose. That night felt unreal. Not because something dramatic happened, but because something so simple did. We sat on his couch, side by side, knees touching like they were trying to memorize each other. Owen didn't talk much, and neither did I. He just kept his hand over mine, his thumb brushing slow circles across my skin. Like he was trying to tell me a truth he didn't know how to say out loud. Every time I looked at him, he looked back like he wasn't afraid of what he felt. Like he wasn't afraid of what I felt. Maybe that scared me more than anything. At some point, he asked softly, "Stay here tonight?" I nodded before I could overthink it. Okay. He handed me a spare blanket, but when we lay down, he stayed beside me on the couch. It was small, barely enough room for both of us, but he didn't seem to care. I didn't either. I fell asleep to the rhythm of his breathing. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't dream of falling. I dreamed of warmth. When I woke, sunlight bled through the curtains. His arm was draped over my waist, our legs tangled. I froze not out of fear, but because it felt strangely right, natural, like this was something my body knew long before my mind dared to understand. He stirred, voice raspy. Morning. I turned. His face was inches from mine, sleepy and beautiful in that effortless way that only belonged to him. Morning, I whispered back. For a moment, we just lay there, breathing the same air. Then he pulled back slightly, eyes searching mine. How do you feel? I considered lying, pretending, pulling back into the safety of uncertainty. But the truth rose before I could stop it. Scared. He nodded. Me too. We shared a small, nervous laugh, the kind that didn't solve anything but made everything feel lighter. Then his phone buzzed. A text. He glanced at it, expression shifting. Work. He sighed. Yeah. Early shift. I forgot. I sat up, suddenly aware of the world outside this small, quiet pocket we'd been living in. I should go, I said. You don't have to. But he didn't stop me when I stood. I followed him to the door. Before I stepped outside, he caught my wrist. Hey. I looked at him. Last night wasn't nothing, right? I shook my head. No, it wasn't nothing. His shoulders relaxed. See you later. Yeah. Walking home, the morning felt sharper, clearer. Birds chirped, sprinklers hissed. Someone somewhere was mowing the lawn. It was just an ordinary day, but everything inside me felt different. Like something had shifted. Unlocked. Unburied. Inside my house, I leaned against the door again, same as the night before. Only this time, the ache in my chest wasn't fear. It was something dangerously close to hope. The day moved slowly after that. I cleaned, worked, tried to distract myself, but every quiet moment was full of him. I replayed the way he held my hand at the wedding. The way he looked at me across the crowd. The way he said I wanted to. Those words echoed long after the world had forgotten them. That afternoon, my brother texted me, "Hope you got home safe." I smiled. Yeah, thanks. It was perfect. A minute later, "Your neighbor's cute." I froze. Then typed, "Shut up." He sent a string of laughing emojis before adding, "I'm serious. He seems good for you." Good for me. What did that even mean? I told him, he's just a friend. A beat. My brother replied, "Then why are you scared?" I set my phone face down. Because I didn't know how to explain it. Because I didn't have answers. Because I barely knew the questions. Around evening, I heard a gentle knock. I opened the door expecting a package. It was him. Owen. Still in his work shirt, collar loose, hair messy, looking like he'd run here instead of walked. "Hey," he breathed. "Hey. Can we talk?" My heart stumbled. "Yeah, come in." He stepped inside and didn't sit. He just paced, hands on his hips, expression alive with thoughts he couldn't pin down. "I can't stop thinking about last night," he said. I nodded. "Me neither." He stopped pacing and faced me, eyes bright and terrified. "I don't want to mess this up, whatever this is." My throat tightened. "You're not." "I might be," he insisted, "because I want to go slow, but I also want to kiss you, and then I want to run away because I don't know if I'm allowed to want that much." His chest rose and fell too fast. He was unraveling. I'd never seen him like this. I took a step toward him. "Hey, breathe." He did. He tried. "I don't know what I'm doing," he continued, "but I know that when I held your hand yesterday, something clicked, like something I'd been waiting for finally showed up." His voice cracked. "And that's terrifying." I stared at him. Not because I didn't understand, but because I understood too well. I stepped closer until we were a breath apart. You're not alone in that. His eyes softened. Then what do we do? I swallowed. Whatever feels real. He nodded, slowly. Then can I try something? Yes. He reached up and brushed his fingers along my jaw. Light, careful. Then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks or music swelling in the background. Just warmth. Soft. Steady. True. Like he'd been waiting to do it his whole life. My hands found his waist. His fingers threaded into my hair. And we kissed like the world wasn't watching. Because maybe it wasn't. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke. Our breaths mingled. His forehead rested against mine. Then he whispered, I've wanted to do that since the day I met you. My heart slammed against my ribs. Why didn't you? You weren't ready. He smiled faintly. Maybe I wasn't either. We sat on the couch again. But this time everything was different. He kept my hand in his, thumb tracing the same slow circles. Only now every touch felt electric. Tell me what scares you, he said. Everything. He laughed softly. That's fair. He told me his fears too. Not of liking men, but of wanting something real and losing it. Of caring too much. Of not being enough. I told him I understood. Because I did. Because I'd been running from the same shadows for years. When the sky outside darkened, he stood reluctantly. I should let you rest. You don't have to. His smile returned, soft and bright. But I will, because if I stay, I'm not sure I'll leave again. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the truth. Good. He laughed. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. I looked up. He gestured at me, flustered but glowing. Whatever this is, he swallowed. I want to try. My chest tightened. Me too. His entire face lit up. Good night, Owen. Good night, Owen. He left. And I collapsed onto the couch, heart racing, cheeks aching from smiling too hard. I felt weightless. Alive. Brand new. Somewhere in the middle of all that had gone wrong in my life, something had finally gone right. His name was Owen. And I was starting to think my brother's wedding hadn't just celebrated his love. Maybe it had started mine. The next morning, I woke with a heartbeat that felt too loud, like it was trying to tell me something urgent. Outside, sunlight filtered through my curtains, turning the room gold. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and smiled without meaning to. Owen and I had said we would try. Just saying those words felt like opening a door I'd spent years pretending didn't exist. I made coffee, but before I could finish my first cup, there was a soft knock. I didn't need to look. I already knew. When I opened the door, he stood there in a hoodie, messy hair, holding 2 paper bags from the bakery down the street. I brought breakfast, he said, trying to look casual but failing spectacularly. I leaned against the doorframe. You know you don't always have to show up with something. He shrugged. Maybe I like having an excuse. I stepped aside. Or maybe you don't need one. He grinned and walked in. We ate on the couch, half talking, half just being. Every second felt new, easy, familiar. a strange combination that wrapped around me like a blanket. After we finished, Owen shifted so he could face me. "So what do you want this to look like?" I froze. Not because I didn't want to answer, but because no one had ever asked me that before. Not honestly. Not with intention. "I don't know," I admitted. He nodded. "That's okay. But I know I want this. I know I want you." His breath hitched. "Yeah." Then he took my hand again, palm warm against mine. So simple, so powerful. I'd spent so much of my life afraid of wanting anything loudly. But now, here with him, I began to wonder if wanting wasn't something to fear. If maybe wanting was the most human thing we could do. Over the next few days, nothing drastic changed, but everything felt different. We cooked dinner together. We went for late walks around the neighborhood, hands brushing, hearts racing. He taught me how to keep succulents alive. I taught him how to make my mom's famous lemon pasta. We fell into a rhythm that felt like we'd been doing it for years. Sometimes, he'd curl up on my couch, legs folded beneath him, and read while I worked. Every now and then, he'd brush his toes against my shin like he needed to confirm I was there. Sometimes I'd do the same. It wasn't perfect. Some nights I panicked. I doubted, overthought, felt the edges of fear creeping in. What if I wasn't enough? What if he changed his mind? What if this ended before it really began? During one of those nights, we sat outside beneath a sky heavy with stars. I stared at the ground, voice quiet. "Do you ever worry this won't last?" He didn't hesitate. "Of course." I blinked. "You do." He nodded. "If something matters, you worry about losing it." Then he took my hand. "But you can't live only in the fear." I swallowed. "How do you not?" He squeezed gently. "Because I'd rather have this now than run from something real." I breathed out slowly. Maybe I was starting to understand. One afternoon, a familiar car pulled into my driveway. My brother. He stepped out, sunglasses on, smile wide. Well, look at you. You're glowing." "Shut up," I muttered. He laughed and hugged me tight. "Everything okay? Everything's good. Really good." His gaze drifted past me, toward the backyard, where Owen was repotting a plant, dirt on his palms, sunlight catching in his hair. My brother's eyebrows lifted. "Oh," he said knowingly. "We didn't hide it. We didn't deny it. We didn't run from it." My brother shook his head in disbelief. "I knew it. At the wedding, the way he held your hand." He clapped me on the shoulder. "I'm happy for you, truly." Emotion welled up in my throat. "Thank you," I managed. He looked at me. "Are you happy?" I turned toward the yard. Owen looked up at that exact moment. When he saw me watching him, he grinned, broad, bright, effortless, and something inside me settled. "Yeah," I whispered. "I am."